Hi, welcome. I'm Robert McBride of All Classical Portland, and I usually join Carlos Kalmar for the pre-concert conversations when he's conducting, and he will be here tonight. He's doing something, I don't know what. So you're probably wondering who these guys are. Let me tell you, it has everything to do with all these microphones. There's a veritable forest of microphones here. And they have come here from Boston, from a company called Sound Mirror, and two of the principals in that company are John Newton and Blanton Alspaugh. Oh no, here. So please welcome John and Blanton from Sound Mirror.
Glad to be here.
These are two of the best classical music recording engineer, producer persons in the business. And they are the ones who've been engineering the Oregon Symphony CDs the past few years. And they're here tonight to record this concert for broadcast on All Classical Portland, but not for a CD. Am I right about that?
No, one piece.
One piece?
Yes. The Shepherd will be included on the next commercial disc.
Oh, great. The first piece on the program. Yeah. Okay. So, John, welcome.
Thank you. Nice to be
He
back.
looks like composer John Adams, don't you think? I think he does. But John Adams is about to be 70. You're not that old yet.
John and I are very close for a lot of reasons and a lot of things.
Good to know. Blanton, welcome.
Thank you.
What's new with you since we last spoke?
Staying busy
Yeah.
on the road.
Yeah. So in 2,500 words or less, tell us about the process. When you come here and set up and record and mix and all that stuff.
Well, it's a simple process. It starts with Carlos. He programs and rehearses and conducts music that we want to put on a commercial disc, and we come and we observe those rehearsals and listen to them and spend some time talking back and forth about how it's going and what could be changed and what's important, and we then capture all three concerts, and just like a movie is made, we'll edit those three concerts together, emphasizing the best, most exciting parts of whatever pieces of music we're recording.
And editing out coughs and dropped programs and stuff. Yes, thank you. So please be quiet.
That part of the process is sometimes takes almost as long as putting the rest of the program together, depending upon whether it's cold season or flu season or hay fever season. But this particular disc will have 5 pieces of music on it, and this is a concert that's going to be, that we're going to capture the first piece. We're going to record the whole concert and turn it into a radio program for All Classical. We do that every time we come here.
Yeah, and it's wonderful because the results are so good and they're so nice to work with. So who's doing what here? You're the recording engineer, you're the producer? Is it that simple?
Vice versa.
It's that simple, but it's the other way around.
Okay. So you'll be doing the actual editing?
Yeah, I'll be listening and marking the score as the performance goes by and making note of things that we want to make sure we try to improve. Carlos and I will talk after each performance and we say, this was good, this still could be a little bit better. And well, basically what we do is we after the first concert, we have a list that's this long of things we want to get better. And after each performance, that list is a little shorter. And then whatever's left after the last performance on Monday night, we'll have a short patch session with the orchestra after the audience leaves.
Well, how much
and we just go through the list and we say, all right, we need these bars, and oh, no, sorry, let's do that again. Okay, that's good, next on the list.
And you can count on Carlos to be consistent in his tempos and everything else, so those will fit together.
Oh yeah, and if he...
I mean, essentially, Blanton is up there, and especially in the first concert, and orchestra and I perform, and he will go, wrong.
I never say that out loud.
But he thinks it. Okay, so what's the deal with all these microphones? Do they each go to their own separate track on the computer?
They do.
Okay.
And there's 34 of them, but not all of them are used all of the time. So we have a widely different program this week, and you'll see the orchestra moving around, and we don't really have time to come down and move microphones around. So we've set up an array that will cover all of the different seating positions of the orchestra throughout the evening.
And do you get a good sound when Carlos stops on here? You get-
Loud and
Excellent.
clear.
Excellent.
Every time I get that, every time when we're working in rehearsals, they pull me aside and say, come on, stop jumping.
That job usually falls to me. It's my job to say to various conductors around the country and the world, if you're going to sing, please sing in tune. If you're going to hum, please hum in tune, etc.
I used to do this here years ago with this orchestra, and I remember when Robert Shaw was here conducting, and I met him beforehand, and he warned me. He said, don't get that mic too close to me on a stereo mic. Don't get that too close because I sing and I sing out of tune. And he did. You'd think that Robert Shaw would be able to sing in tune a lot, but no, he was making these weird sounds. Humans, they're fun. How long have you been doing this, both of you?
Oh, I've been doing it for 40 years,
Yeah, I mean, you started Sound Mirror when, 1972?
about. It's a little hard to pick an exact day when it started, but it started that year.
Sound Mirror's a cool name, I like it.
Thank you. It's the
And you-
name of an old tape recorder company, which is long since out of business.
Oh, I didn't know that.
And we only learned that after we adopted the name and checked that it was available to be used, and have now discovered that it was the name of a tape recorder. It's also the name of some parabolic microphones that are used in sporting events to pick up what the players are saying in the middle of the field.
And you've seen those guys along the side, they got this big round
Yeah.
thing, and that's how they get all that stuff from on the field. So if you go to soundmirror.com now, you will be redirected to a Psychology Today site. It's not true. All right, so Carlos, you probably want to talk, which means throwing at least one of these guys out. Pick one.
Okay.
Is that like, isn't there a show about that?
There is now. Carlos, welcome.
Hey, glad to be here.
Yeah, I'm glad to know that the first piece on the program will be on the next CD, which will be out when, you think?
Oh, I'm trying to remember what the label has discussed as a release date. I mean, it's probably the fall.
Okay. These
Actually,
things-
you know what the fun thing about, fun thing, is yesterday I spoke with Sean Shepard, the composer, young American composer in New York. I spoke with him on the phone, and he had pretty much just then received the message that we are recording this piece. Meaning he didn't know, and he of course said, wow, this is amazing, and he told me that he was in the audience when we did this, that epic Carnegie Hall debut, so he was very, very happy. And then we went over some minor little things, because, this is fresh piece of music. So the recording that Blanton and John are putting together with us is 4 pieces of 21st century music. One of them, I hope that will be done next week. Every day I see the composer who sits in our viola section. I say, Kenji, where is my piece? And he says, like, it's here.
Just like Amadeus in my noodle.
Yeah, and so 3 others are 21st century, like this one, and 1 piece of Barber that absolutely needs a newer recording. Now, with pieces of the 21st century that have been played, but not 700 times, it might happen that there are a couple of question marks. Especially when a piece is as rich as this one, because I remember that the first piece that we already recorded was called Supplica by Christopher Rouse, which is a very quiet, slow piece, and figuring out whether there are any kind of mistakes or question marks is very easy, because it's like you have time. This one, because it's a high energy fast piece, you are pretty much overwhelmed by what goes on. And the great thing is that in this orchestra, I have some musicians who are kind of, they are nerds because they find a note and say like, this one in the third bassoon actually doubling the second viola can really not be that way. Or stuff like that. And then I control and I say, actually you're right, let's correct it. And then there might be some issues where I feel like I need to talk to the composer. Because for me, the composer's work is always, there is some sanctity to it. This is what the composer wants. The only thing that, especially in recent music, if I can say that, I can add to the equation is a couple of years of experience in terms of figuring out what does the composer actually want us to hear. And so what will happen overall in modern pieces is that I will adapt and, if you will, correct some dynamics, meaning something that he writes very loudly in some brass instruments, I will just say, no, not so much, and stuff like these are little adjustments. Now in this piece, I told that to Sean yesterday, I said, not a single thing in that category, because it's very thoughtfully orchestrated and built, and there is nothing that sticks out where you actually need to hear some. But there were one or two notes where, just from the practical point of view, I said, do you allow me to add this little note in this phrase? It makes life for the group easier. And he looked and said, sure. Also a practical guy. And so this was a nice conversation. All in all, this piece is very easily explained. It's magic, magia, magic, Russian. Because it was done, I think, it was premiered in the United States, but it was first taken to Russia by this new youth orchestra that Valery Gergiev conducts. And Sean Shepard just thought, well, there are two pieces of muscular, important Russian music on the same program. Let me just play with that idea somewhat. And this is the piece.
So tonight we have this all-Russian program with this Russian-inflected new American piece on it. I like that a lot. And then Prokofiev and Stravinsky and Tchaikovsky. Yesterday I was preparing for this concert and I listened to some recordings and I read some liner notes and I listened to 3 different versions of the Stravinsky, the original full ballet and this suite, and also the version that he made for violin and piano. And I listened to the Prokofiev second violin concerto, which I adore. And I listened to both versions of Tchaikovsky, Romeo and Juliet, the original, which has been recorded, and then the version that everybody knows that we'll hear tonight. One guess out of all that, what melody was in my head for the next day?
I never know what is in your head.
Noted.
First movement of the Prokofiev.
No, interesting guess. No, something more. Well, it was that love theme from Romeo and Juliet.
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
Second choice
Well,
was
yeah.
there.
Yeah.
I thought, are you really going for the da question?
Apparently. Yeah. Tchaikovsky, what a melodist. He was amazing. So the original, it was interesting to listen to a piece that's been so heavily revised and we don't know the original. And they both have their strengths and weaknesses, and all the versions of the Stravinsky I think are delightful. And if I did have an earworm from the Prokofiev concerto, it would be that second movement, which is so beautiful.
Well,
so
actually,
rare.
after the rehearsal in the second movement here with Stefan, our just amazing soloist, after the second movement in the dress rehearsal, I turned to him and said, if Prokofiev wouldn't have written the first violin concerto, I would say this movement is the best piece he has ever written. But he also wrote the first.
Which has also been played here
Yeah.
by the Oregon Symphony. Is there anything on this program other than the first piece that you guys have never done before?
No,
I don't think so.
no, I'm
Not this
sure that Le Baiser de la Fée, the Fairest Kiss, has probably been a while. but that's pretty much everything. But I actually want to ask Blanton in regards to, because I heard you have so many channels here. So what do you do in Prokofiev where diminished orchestra, one soloist, you shut half of them off?
In most cases, the entire orchestra sound is really only from a handful of microphones, and all the whole forest is really just for little bits that we want to try to bring in. So yes, in the Prokofiev, which is a little more spare orchestration, we're simply not even using most of those microphones.
This
So
one
yeah,
hanging-
we'll mute them.
This one hanging right here is for
Yeah.
the soloist, right?
Exactly. That's actually a stereo microphone. It's two ribbon microphones in a coincident configuration, so that you get a left and right pickup on the solo.
That's what we use for Thursdays at 3, by the way.
So I am not in.
Sounds great.
I'm not in technical stuff at
Yeah.
all. I'm an absolute. Don't understand a thing.
Yeah.
But I understand as far as real computer people or phone people tell me that if you actually own something like an iPhone 5, you're like an oldie, and that every laptop you buy half a year later is kind of like old, doesn't do this. What's with? Is it that quick, or is actually the equipment like this you can buy and it will last fine for 5 years?
In some cases for 50 years. We don't have, I don't think any of the ones we're using here are quite that old, but we do have some at Sound Mirror that are 40 plus years old, because they were built to last and they still sound great. But at the same time, there are new things, like this microphone is made by a guy in Salt Lake City, and he's taken, we think, the idea of ribbon microphones to a whole new level, and so this is brand new. So it's a combination. You've got things that are classics and always sound good, and then you've got guys who are always working on improvements and enhancements and things like that, and we pay attention and say, oh, we want to add that to our palette.
So, but you decided based upon what?
We listened.
You just listen and think,
Yep.
this is, so you
I'm trying to
can
remember.
actually-
I think it was John who was doing a recording with the Utah Symphony, and the guy came to one of the concerts and said, I have this microphone I'd love for you to listen to. And John listened to it and said, sounds great, we'll take it.
And
It's good to be bold sometimes.
And you drive for, so you have a truck or what? that
Well,
drives
sometimes. We do have a Dodge Sprinter van that we'll load up and drive. I remember one year, just a few years ago, we put 10,000 miles on it in a month.
around? Oh, good luck.
We drove, I'm trying to remember, I think it was Boston to Portland, Portland to Sioux Falls, South Dakota, Sioux Falls to Phoenix, and then I can't remember if we went back to the West Coast before we went back to Boston or not, but sometimes if the projects work out, we'll load up the truck and drive from one to the other. Other times, like in this case, we called on FedEx and we gave them a pile of boxes and said, you guys deliver
go
this.
and we fly whenever,
Exactly.
which is more, I mean, I know that road trips are fun,
Yeah.
but I probably after a while it's like,
I actually enjoy the driving. The driving is a blast.
Do you listen to music while you drive?
Not usually, no.
What's your musical background, Glenn? You listen to sports talk.
Yeah.
I know. What's your musical background?
I was a trombone player and did some choral singing, and then studied conducting, and then got into radio and into recording.
Any regrets?
No,
Yeah, I didn't think.
not a bit.
Yeah. Who are the hardest musicians to work with?
The guys somebody else is working with. I don't work with.
You don't work with
we're
those
very
people?
fortunate.
Ah, nice.
I can't say
So we're not going to say
that
bad things
any of the
about-
people that we work with are difficult.
that sounds exactly like I always talk about soloists, meaning the first-rate soloists.
Yeah.
They're all they have a point of view, but not a problem at all. Never.
Yeah.
I can't wait to hear this new recording. I really do admire the work that you do. Do you worry about, after so many years of listening so critically, of blasting your ears?
Well,
Are you very careful?
we are actually very careful with that, and that manifests itself in a couple of ways. In our studios in Boston, in building and designing those studios, John and the consultants that we used worked very hard to make them quiet, so isolated from outside noise, but also things like the HVAC, the ventilation, air conditioning, all those things, setting up that system so that it was also very quiet, so that when we're working all day, we can listen actually at a moderate level and hear everything we need to hear. More broadly, in the recording and the music industry, there's a growing awareness of the danger of listening at excessive levels, because you got guys who've been doing this for years and for decades, and they can't hear anymore. For instance, the Recording Academy, the people who do the Grammy Awards, the Recording Academy has a very active program of working with recording professionals to encourage them to listen at, not harmful levels.
Have you ever been involved, so you've been involved in studio design, have you ever been involved in concert hall design or sound?
We typically aren't asked to contribute to concert hall acoustic design or things like that. Within the area of recording facilities, we've participated. John helped design and execute the recording facilities in the new Mariinsky Concert Hall in St. Petersburg with Gergiev. So
Nice work if you can get it.
exactly.
But then here, you've got this room to work with. I mean, you hear that reverberation. You know that it's there and that affects the sound from the orchestra. So you're not just recording the orchestra, you're also recording the room.
We're recording the musicians in the space, and a big part of what we do everywhere we go is to listen and decide where we need to put the microphone so that we balance the direct sound from the orchestra with the reverberant sound in the space.
Which is why when you cough and drop your program and stuff, it makes it on.
Loud and clear.
Yeah, loud and clear. It's true.
Well,
You have no idea.
you know the good news about that tonight. Of course, please don't cough and don't drop, don't throw things away. This piece, I just thought about Supplica that we recorded at the beginning of the season, which was, in that sense, a nightmare because it's a very quiet piece. This is not at all. Don't cough, nonetheless. But I mean, we do a lot of noise in this piece, and this actually, all in all, it's an interesting program because it starts with really high energy American music. Then it goes, probably the quietest moment is undoubtedly the Violin Concerto by Prokofiev, because first of all it features a soloist, and it's not a piano, so it has to be a little quieter, and also the instrumentation is a little more sparse. And then we go to Stravinsky in a way that actually Stravinsky doesn't usually, Stravinsky doesn't sound like that, you think, because what we all remember about Stravinsky is Rite of Spring, which is a beast. Petrushka, which in part is a beast, and Firebird, of course, which also has, I mean, it's muscular. This piece is not really like that. It has a couple of moments, but that's it. And in a way, to match the beginning is the last piece, because yes, on one side Romeo and Juliet starts and towards the end gets quiet again, but in the middle the entire drama evolves of Romeo and Juliet and this horrifying story that they endured, and there is a lot of energy in that.
So, Blanton, in the remaining time we have, favorite composers?
Oh my goodness. Frequent question that I'm asked is my favorite composer, and I can truly say it's the composer of the piece I'm working on.
That's what they all say.
Yeah, well, it's true,
Must
but you
be
know,
true.
tomorrow I'll be working on a different piece, so you know, but that's how I look at it. That's what I enjoy about it.
So what do you do when you have to record a piece of music that you actually don't like?
We just do the best we can.
Carlos?
Again, in the same way that we don't typically end up working with people
Right.
who are really difficult, we don't usually get into situations where it's a piece that that there's nothing to like about it.
Carlos, are you ever in the position of conducting a piece that you would rather not do?
No, I simply don't. I simply will say I don't conduct that.
Yeah, see, we don't typically get involved until after the conductor has decided he's going to do something, so he's already screened out all the things that we wouldn't like.
That's kind of it.
That's good. Well, the great thing actually in regards to that is that I also, with exceptions, there is music that I never liked and I doubt that I will like, but other pieces that I simply at some point in my life I said like, ugh. And then I get older and not really wiser but older, and I think, well, let me look again. I remember, I mean, just one example of many, it took me long time in my life to warm up to Mr. Berlioz, to simply even like what he writes, and now I'm like, me, Berlioz, yes, love all of it. Well, the ones that I conduct. And there are others. And right
Isn't that
now,
nice?
this is not a promise, but I'm thinking there is another piece that I conducted it, thought like, ugh, it's good music, I know that, but not my taste. The Symphony in D minor by César Franck. Yeah, I know, don't shoot me. And now I'm in this situation where I think, let me do that again, because I think I'm wrong.
Yeah, for me, that's one of the pieces that I have for a long time not liked very much. I mean, I acknowledge that it's a great piece.
But it's just not your thing.
Hasn't appealed to me, but I agree. You can go back and say, yes, there's something there that's worth doing.
Right.
Exactly. I mean, and in the end, when I was 17, I mean, what do you know when you are 17? Nothing.
Everything.
Yeah. I really did not like this guy named Johann Sebastian Bach. Exactly. How stupid can you be? I mean, yeah.
Isn't growing up fun?
In the end, you cannot do anything else.
You learn and you grow and you change. And the other point I want to make is how great it is when people collaborate. All these musicians, this conductor, and all of your staff, and these guys coming here and making the recordings, and you buying tickets, and then we put the concerts on the radio, and everybody wins. It's a good thing.
Thank you.
Thanks for being here tonight, Blanton, Alspaugh,
Thank you.
and Carlos Kalmar.
And Robert McBride.